Did you know 2022 marks 20 years of R-branded Golfs? That's right, way back in 2002, Volkswagen launched its first ever 6-cylinder powered all-wheel drive super hatch. And here we are 20 years and 4 generations later with the most recent version. The question is, with a very good previous gen car, what can Volkswagen possibly do to up the ante? We're going to take a closer look. Before we go ahead, remember to check out the full written review on carsguide.com.au. Oh, and we've also got a full review and video on the first ever Tiguan R, which is expected to outsell even this Golf. So make sure to check that out as well. If you want to skip ahead to any part of this video, here are the timecodes on your screen now. If you're watching on YouTube, they'll be in the timeline or the description below. While you're there, why not hit like, subscribe, and the bell notification icon will help you keep up to date with all of our latest content. In line with the rest of the Golf 8 range, the new R takes a massive price hike for this year. In fact, at $65,990 before on-road costs, it's $10K more than the outgoing Mark 7.5. Part of this goes into the new and much higher level of standard equipment and technology in the 8th generation car's cabin, but there are also many hidden changes which affect its performance which aren't as obvious. Starting with that tech though, and the R really wows inside and out with new gear. The cabin is adorned with 2 massive screens for the multimedia and dash respectively, complete with the slick new software suite. The move up market does come with some luxury upgrades, with the R's new bucket seats clad in a higher grade Napa leather, and there's wireless phone connectivity, a wireless charger, USB-C connectivity, 3-zone climate control, and a head-up display as well. On the outside, the R has standard adaptive matrix LED headlights and big 19-inch alloys to go with its subtle new body kit. On the options menu is a panoramic sunroof and Harman Kardon premium audio. Stay tuned though, because there's much more lurking under the surface of the new R, which enhances its performance. We'll take a closer look at that at the engine and transmission part of this review. One thing R-branded Volkswagens have always done well is subtlety, and this certainly continues for the 8th generation model, which takes the existing pared-back tasteful lines of the standard Golf and turns them up in all the right areas, from blacked-out air dams and the new LED strip in the front to a squared-off spoiler and chunky quad exhaust fittings in the rear. The R gets progressive scrolling indicators and 19-inch alloys in a new design as part of its new generation overhaul. This is one area where I feel like they could have done a bit more for the R. The only thing that really sets it apart here is this sort of carbon look trim, these little blue highlights, and of course the real highlight piece, which is these Napa leather bucket seats. They're quite lovely actually. Other than that, there's not really much that sets the R apart from the rest of the Golf 8 range, and that just seems like a bit of a missed opportunity. Thankfully though, that does mean it inherits the entire Practicality suite from the rest of the Golf 8 range. Let's take a look. That does mean that this little hatch has a big cabin which feels really open, plenty of arm room, plenty of room for your elbows and your knees, and this nice clean console design has really tidied things up in here. In this new center area, there is a neat bottle holder with a little flip out clasp that'll hold bottles of all different sizes, and this has really been tidied up in here to include a little cutaway for keys or wallets, what have you, and a clasping wireless phone charging bay, so you can actually put your phone in there, and when you do some more exciting driving maneuvers, it won't simply fly out, while also adding another shelf on top for loose objects. As you work your way up the dash, you have all these touch functions here leading to the screen. There are a few downsides from this. I do find that it's never as easy to operate the climate functions using touch panel surfaces or the screen itself, which is not great, and it's the same for the rest of the controls. There's some basic climate functions, the volume functions, they're all using a touch surface. Now, to be clear, it is one of the better touch interfaces I've ever used, but it's still a touch interface. I'd really love to just grab a physical dial while I'm trying to concentrate on the road. Elsewhere, the screen looks amazing, but it's really high resolution, and this means when you're using phone mirroring software like I am now with Apple CarPlay, some of the shortcuts are very small and hard to jab again while you're trying to concentrate on the road. But other than that, this is a really lovely interior. Let's go take a look in the back seat. The back seat of the Golf 8 is really impressive, and it continues for the R as well. Sure, these big chunky sport seats take up a little bit more room than they do in the standard range, but I still feel like I've got plenty of knee room behind my own seating position there, which is really nice to see. Amenities back here are plentiful as well. If I grab my phone, I've got a nice little spot for it on the back of the front seats there, as well as your standard pocket further down. Amenities are great too. There's also dual adjustable air vents and a separate climate zone. That's really rare in the hatch segment to have tri-zone climate, and 2 USB-C ports as well. In terms of bottle holders, you've got a big one in the door here, just like you do in the front. That's nice to see. And the drop-down armrest, just like there is in the Tiguan, there are 3 separate, differently sized ones for whatever bottle suits you. The boot has a volume of 374 litres, which is at the upper end for a hatchback. It accepted our entire CarsGuide luggage set as long as you remove the parcel shelf. Of course, the new R is the most potent Golf ever made, with an updated version of its famed A45 2-litre 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. Here are the power figures on your screen now, but it's important to note there's much more to this car's performance story than numbers alone. This time around, the all-wheel drive system has been overhauled to introduce a new feature called R Performance Torque Vectoring. This consists of a new rear dual-clutch pack system, which can actively adjust the amount of drive sent to each of the 2 rear wheels. This combines with new software to allow for superior grip and cornering ability, as well as being able to send the majority of drive to one of the outer rear wheels when needed. On the topic of software, the new system has enabled a more sophisticated drift mode, and the R also gains a new Nürburgring mode, which differentiates itself from race mode by allowing for a bit more play in the suspension to deal with situations where the road surface is less than ideal. This plays to the R's strength of not necessarily being overwhelmingly more powerful, but more controlled and smarter in the way it puts that power to the ground. Let's hop behind the wheel and see how it handles on the road. Now, this was never going to be a bad story. There's never been a bad Golf R to drive, but I think what's most impressive about this new version is how well it mixes that refinement and ride comfort of the rest of the Golf 8 range in with its newfound performance. Things like these enormous alloy wheels do so little to ruin the ride. The level of control and dampening on offer is really impressive. Obviously, you'll hit a limit with the size of the wheels, but I think the most important thing to take away from this car's balance is that making a hot hatch go faster is not always about simply making it stiffer. And that's despite the fact that the R starts from the get-go in sport mode. It feels so controlled through the corners, and the steering is really nicely weighted no matter which drive mode you pick. Now, yes, the Golf R is faster and has crazy amounts of grip, which we'll talk to in a second when we get to the track driving portion of the experience. But the engine feels like it ekes out just that little bit more power. It sounds more angry, and there's even a pure exhaust mode which will turn off the aural enhancement so you can hear the engine for truly what it is. Give the people what they want, as they say. And obviously, one of the things we really liked about the new Golf 8, the base versions of the car with the smaller engine, was that it swaps away that dual clutch automatic and all that kind of glitchiness that comes with it for a torque converter auto. This isn't the case in the R. You still get a 7-speed dual clutch automatic, but with this engine's level of power on offer, it really is quite impressive. All of that glitchiness just sort of falls away. You have enough torque to overcome those low speed scenarios, and the transmission really comes alive when you are accelerating in that straight line and you need those cogs to swap as fast as possible. Now, like all Golfs, visibility is really great out of this car, and most of the functions are really easy to use as well, with that nice fast software that operates both these screens here with customizable displays, so you can see pretty much anything you want. In fact, the Golf R has its own set of displays where you can see things like kilowatts, torque, all sorts of different performance measurements. It's really quite neat. That goes into the software as well, which again we'll get to in a second. Obviously, grip levels from these performance tyres and with this new refined all-wheel drive system is truly impressive, but you can't really feel the difference until you get on the track and you start to play with those new software and hardware modes. So when it comes to driving around town then, there's so little to complain about when it comes to the Golf R. Yes, this hatch is a ridiculous performer, but it doesn't bring with it those usual complaints we'd have about a hot hatch. Oh, it might be exciting when you first buy it, but it'll be so stiff you'll get sick of it. That just isn't the case here. This car has a real split personality between being comfortable to drive around every day and then being able to let loose on the track. If there's one thing I will complain about, it is just those touch interfaces. They're not quite as easy to use as hardware dials while you're driving, and it can sometimes be quite a distracting experience to use those functions. Let's take a look at the track now and see how it's different from its predecessors. On track is where you can really make the most of the Golf's new performance features. Tackling corners at speed is transformed by the new torque vectoring system, which continually adjusts the torque sent to each wheel to have the car handle understeer better, grip and carry speeds through the corners better, as well as slide in a more controlled manner. Drift mode is transformative, allowing the driver to almost completely remove the ESC features and set the car to a full slide, sending a much higher amount of torque to the rear outside wheel to not only brake into a slide more easily, but hold it more easily with more finesse as well. This new hardware and software trickery give the Golf R an even deeper breadth of ability, which somehow improves on what came before it, without the need to have a huge bump in power. The Golf R has an official combined fuel consumption number of 7.8 litres to 100 kilometres, but we saw more like 9 on our test, closer to the official urban number. The even more highly strung engine requires only top shelf 98 unleaded. The R scores all of the Golf 8's latest safety equipment with important standard features like freeway speed auto emergency braking, lane assist functions, rear-facing gear like blind spot monitoring, and rear cross traffic alert. For the full breakdown, check out the review on carsguide.com.au. The R continues with 8 airbags and is covered by the regular variant's maximum 5-star ANCAP safety rating. When it comes to ownership, every Golf is covered by a 5-year and unlimited kilometre warranty complete with roadside assist. It is notable the range of R models miss out on the limited track warranty which Hyundai's N-branded models are covered by. On the topic of ownership though, the most affordable way to own any VW is with the new care plans, which are paid for up front at the time of purchase. In the case of the Golf R, the prices are on your screen now for 3 or 5 year packs. This brings the most affordable annual cost to $600, a little high for a mainstream hatch, but not outrageous for a performance model. The new Golf R is not only faster, better equipped and better appointed than its predecessors, but it's also smarter about how it uses its power, innovating on both the hardware and software fronts. While it's also more expensive than the car that came before it, it offers an unprecedented breadth of ability, both being safer and more refined for the casual driver, while being able to strip that all back for the purist. To me, that's a win-win.